White people try to throw away the Old Testament. There is only one reason white people try to throw away the Old Testament. One. And it's because of one chapter. Can you guess what that chapter is? What chapter is that? Exodus chapter 20, which contains what? The Ten Commandments. That's why people throw away the entire Old Testament. They are trying to get rid of the law. Now let's be more specific. People say we do not have to keep the law, we're under grace. They are trying to get rid of the Sabbath. Because the people who say, I am under grace, I don't have to keep the law, they want you to obey the law that says, thou shalt not kill. Tell me if I'm right. They want you to obey the law that says, thou shalt not take my wife, commit adultery. What they are really targeting is the Sabbath commandment. But to get rid of it, they say we don't need the law. To get rid of the Ten Commandments as a whole, they say we don't need the Old Testament. You keep that up, you'll eventually come to the place where you say we don't need what? The entire Bible. If you live long enough and you step on that path, I don't need the Old Testament, I don't need the law, you come to the place inevitably where you conclude, I don't need the Bible. But God in His mercy cuts people off before they reach a point of no return in their rejection of truth.
Right. So yeah, this is Revelation chapter 20. So yeah, some of the things that the dude was saying was right, but he there's a lot he didn't expound on. So I'm gonna try to go into to the ability that the Most High gave me. So Lord willing, this is edifying. So I want to give all praises and honor and glory unto Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakahakodash. Double honor to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, who rule well and do well. Right, to the elder apostles, bishops in Connecticut, to the bishops, the preachers, the teachers, the evangelists, and the four winds, preaching in truth and sincerity, risking your lives more now than ever, the hopeful elect, Shalom, to the Israelite foreigners who phenotype may look like another nation, but bloodline goes back to Israel through your father and have come back to the fold. Shalom to you sisters, you Akwathium, who listen and learn under your husband, which is your spiritual leader, with meekness and with silence. This is your brother Aram Yahawada with the lesson. And so this is Revelation chapter 20, verse 1. Verse 2, Salakia. Chapter 20, verse 2. Well, I might as well go to 1. It says, and I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit, right, which dealing with Europe, right, because they that's why they go around the world conquering, looking for minerals and different things, because they don't really have any in Europe, right? And America is a front. It's technically a province of Britain, of Europe. And that's why they use America as their guard dog, so to speak, because it has the military, right? Because you deal with America's the military. I believe it's England's the financial backing, because you got the EU, NATO, EU. Right, they use that as their military between America and NATO, and then the EU, their financial, and then you got Roman Catholic Church, which is the false prophet, right? And they basically, that's how they spread their lies throughout the earth, right? But in this time, right, before all that happens, right, they had to get locked down into the bottomless pit, and a great chain in his hand, right? So the basically the Lord bound them over into the Caucasus Mountains, right? Because they used to be in Mount Seir, but this time Mount Seir wasn't a prison for them. Mount Seir was their home. The Lord gave them Mount Seir as an inheritance, but they didn't want to dwell in Mount Seir, right? So they went about, in the time of was it the Greeks ruling through Alexander, right? And it says, and he laid hold on the dragon, right? And they ruled from Alexander unto till it became the Roman Greco Empire, right? That's Rome, the red dragon, and the old serpent, right? Which is going back into from the beginning, right? The serpent that deceived Eve, right? Which is saying that same spirit that was in that serpent, that same spirit got into Cain, which slew his brother, which in return, that same spirit came back in Esau, who wars against his brother in the belly of the womb of his mother. And the first came out red all over like a hairy garment, right? And the younger hand held fast the heel of Esau, right? His name was Jacob, what they call Jacob. And it said the elder shall serve the younger. So the elder has to go into slavery, right? So there was a time under Solomon, well, David and Solomon, that they were slaves, right? And they came and ruled under the Greeks. And then they became the Roman Greco Empire, right? Which is basically that dragon, that red dragon, the old serpent, which is the devil, right? Which the devil means what? False accuser. And Satan, which means our adversary. So he'd been our adversary since the womb of our mother, Rebecca, right? And bound him 8,000 years. So this is talking about in the Caucasus Mountains. But before that, showing that they were how they got into power to becoming the dragon, right? This is Genesis chapter 27, verse 28. And Esau said unto his father, has thus but one blessing, my father? And right, and this is when Jacob came in, which they call subtlety, right? And of course, Esau said, isn't he rightly called Jacob, which means supplanter, right? Which hey, you got to get the Lord had already ordained it for it to go into Jacob, but part of Jacob's thing is finessing, what they call these days, right? So through his mother, he had the right skills to finesse, right? So to speak. But it was already ordained that it was always going to go to Jacob anyway, right? While you try to make him look like an evil guy, you're the one who was evil. You sold it, and then you were going to go in after selling it and was going to try to proclaim it. So he had to go in that way. He had to go in and basically supplant, because you sold it and you were going to go try to collect on something you had already sold, right? But let's continue, because that's a whole nother topic. But it just speaks to their Edomite supremacy, right? That's ultimately even then, right? But it says, and Esau said unto his father, has thus but one blessing, my father? Bless me even me also, O my father. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept, man. He was crying, like a little bi, man. He just, and that's what he's doing now, the so-called black fatigue. And then you got a lot of so-called Negroes that's agreeing with it, right? Right? They're all in compliance. Well, yeah, well, I understand, and we do need to. Well, y'all both wrong, right? Yeah, there's a thing with our people and a condition and our behavior, but the condition and behavior came from these folks, man. Right? They didn't call it projects for nothing. It was truly an experiment, which they tried it before. They tried it on rats, and it worked successfully. So they said, hey, well, let's try this on human beings. Let's see if this actually works. If you deprive another human being, even if you do the animals, you deprive them, and you watch the other ones flourish, they operate a little bit better. But the ones that were deprived, they know this was part of their experiment. They ate each other. They fought and ate and gnawed at each other. Same rats, other side. They were getting fed. They had no reason to say. And then they reversed it. Gave the rats who were gnawing and fighting each other, gave them plenteous, gave them great substance, and deprived the ones who were eating good and fat and all this other stuff. They started fighting and gnawing each other. So this is all science, man. Right? They know these things. Right? You know the thing about an elephant, if you remove the father, the male elephant at a young age, the young elephant will become violent and start killing other elephants. But if it has a male role model, the male elephant ends up being a great protector and one who protects the elephant society. So these are things that they already know, right? But at the same time that they're weeping, they're crying, black fatigue and all this other madness, right? And Esau and Isaac, his father, answered and said unto him, behold, which means feast your eyes, look, pay attention, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth. And he has that. And then he's still crying black fatigue. He's still crying this and that. He's still crying all these different things. That's because his kingdom has fallen, man. Right? Yeah. The fatness of the earth and the dew of heaven from above. Right? And by thy sword shall thus live. And this is how they're going to obtain these things. It's how they're going to live. They're going to live by the sword, but they're going to also die by the sword, which our Lord, which in the reincarnation or regeneration was Isaac. He was Isaac and came back as Yahushua and gave forth that death decree. He who lives by the sword will die by the sword. So yeah, you're living by the sword, shall live, thus live, and shall serve thy brother. See, and this is where the point I'm trying to make. And you're going to serve his brother, right, in the time of what? Of King David and Solomon. But during Solomon's disobedience, it allowed basically opportunity for Esau, right? Because then that's ultimately the first time these Edomites started rising up. I mean, they didn't get full control until the time of Alexander, but this was the beginning of them, right? Starting to rise up, because they're going to serve thy brother, which means slave unto thy brother, right? Under David, under Solomon, and then all through, many of Solomon's children. But then eventually, they, through the disobedience of Israel, time and time again, eventually they came, and was it the rough goat conquered the Medo-Persian Empire, right? And then the Israelites were in captivity at that time. So then it allowed them to be the ones who were in charge, right? And by thy sword, right, shall thus live, right? And it says, so prior to the time of Alexander, they served, right, as slaves under Jake for a while. And then, of course, other nations conquered Jake. So they were even servitude under these other nations. Until Alexander, it says, came to pass. Yeah, and it shall come to pass, Salakia, when thus shall have dominion. See, and there was going to come a time, right? The point I was trying to make, that there's going to come a time he was going to have dominion, right? That was time of Alexander. That thus shall break his yoke from off thy neck, right? So, like I was saying, this happened in two different periods that I could think of, right? Of course, the one we were reading, right? And then, like I said, the time of Solomon. So yeah, basically, like I was saying, it started here, which was 1 Kings 11 and 14. And Yahweh stirred up an adversary against Solomon, right? And this is Solomon after he had he grew old in his older age, and then he basically built temples to other gods, idols. He kind of, his heart wasn't completely perfect towards the Lord. And when this happened, he raised up a adversary unto him, which shows you that these are our natural adversaries, right? Because if you understand who Solomon is Yahweh Shai, right? Through the reincarnation. So Hadad, the Edomite, see, and immediately the Lord could have stirred up. There's 18 nations besides Israel, so there's 17 other nations. Any of those other nations, the Lord could have raised up an adversary, which would have been a far greater adversary. Like, Ham is way stronger than a goddamn Edomite, right? You got all the other people that's stronger than the Edomites, right? You got those goddamn Japhites, them so-called what they call Hawaiians and stuff. Those dudes are really strong, right? You could have raised up a really strong adversary. I mean, Moab, man, they populate like a mug, right? That's why the so-called Chinese is goddamn something 2 billion or 3 billion or 4 billion people, something crazy, right? You could have raised up anybody to be an adversary, but no, you have to raise up the one who's our adversary since our mother's womb, our adversary, our enemy, right? Which showing you that the spirituality to what the Most High is doing, right? This is a spiritual thing. So when soon as because you gotta think, Solomon had 40 years of peace, but when he went off, who did the first adversary, which is key to raise up against him, was Hadad the Edomite. He was of the king's seed in Edom. See, he and look, lo and behold, he goes right back to Edom. He was of the king's seed, going back to he's one of the chief people in Edom to come up against our chief person, which would be technically Yahweh Shai. But this is the time of him being Solomon, which he still was the chief person. He was the king, right? But this is the first time they decided to try to raise up, right? So they were basically, they revolted. That was the first time they ever revolted. It was under Solomon, which is spiritual, but they still was under the kingdom of Judah, right? Even though they revolted, So it went through Solomon's sons down the line. They were still under the kingdom of Judah until this time period right here. This is 2 Chronicles 21. In his days, the Edomites revolted from under the dominion of Judah. See, they were still under the dominion of Judah, right? And made themselves a king, right? So they went ahead and they made themselves basically all over again. They set up a king. And this is some time down the line. And I said, then Jehoram went forth, right? Which is Solomon's great grandson down the line. So they were still under the kingdom of Judah as slaves, as servants. Then Jehoram went forth with his princes and with all his chariots with him, and he rose up by night and smote the Edomites, which compassed him in, and the captains of his chariots of the chariots. It says so the Edomites revolted from under the hand of Judah. See, this is that time. It says until this day, right? To this very day, right? Esau, now they're ruling over us, right? The same time also did Lanan revolt from under his hand, because he had forsaken Yahweh, right? The Yahweh power, right? We say Yahweh Bashem Shai now, but at the time I couldn't say that because Solomon was on the scene, so that would have been the spirit of Yahweh Shai. So he wasn't. I mean, but still, it's ultimately right the spirit of Yahweh Bashem Shai, because this time period, Yahweh Shai would be back at the right hand of the Father, right? Because this is his great grandson, and they're revolting. So this is all part of the Lord's plan, right? Because he had forsaken Yahweh Bashem Shai, power of his Father, right? So then to come here, it says and he come back here, it says and cast him down, right, into the bottomless pit, right, which is Georgia, Russia, right, the Caucasus Mountains, right, with the dust, the confusion that was upon him, right, and shut him up, right, and set a seal upon him that he shall not deceive the nations anymore, right? And that's part of the dust and confusion, because that means he didn't have enough knowledge, right, to actually deceive anybody, right? That's that dust of confusion, because that's what it tells you. Go back into Genesis, that serpent, right, which is the same spirit that was in the serpent, which the same spirit was in Cain, which is the same spirit that's in Esau. It says all the days of thy life thou shalt eat dust, right? And that's basically that confusion. Even now, even in their rulership, they're not. Come on, the little plans that they're doing, it's stupid. I mean, if you had real wisdom, no way you pollute the air that you have to breathe yourself, right? No way you do these certain things that you do, and you're in rulership. It doesn't matter. I mean, yeah, you're trying to jam up this or jam up that, but then you're destroying the very planet that you're trying to keep to rule. It doesn't make sense. I mean, but basically this is the dust, right? Going into the time of Genesis, that you would eat dust all the time of your life, right? Because it's that same spirit, right? And it even tells you that in Obadiah, there is no wisdom in him. He has no understanding. There's no understanding in him, Slakia, right? Right, in Obadiah, right? That's going right into that dust, right? Why? And it says that he would deceive the nations no more till the 1,000 years should be filled, and after that he must be loose a short season. And saying this is the time that the Byzantine Empire, right? Time that Jake was ruling, time of what they call the Dark Ages, when Jake was ruling, right? Going into time of them conquering Spain and Portugal and taking over those provinces and those strongholds. And one of the first places that they used was it 1492, Cristobal Colon or Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue, right? This is the time that they had got a lot of the strongholds in Europe, right? After, the Byzantine Empire, or what they call the Dark Ages, right? And they basically took over those things in those places in Europe where Jake was ruling for 1,000 years. So that 1,000 years that he was in the dust and the confusion, 1,000 years he was shut up, that he couldn't deceive, Jake was ruling, right? Go down here. And then it says and then it says and when the 1,000 years are expired, Satan, which is our adversary, which is Esau, right? We've seen that through Solomon. The first time Solomon, because he went off the first adversary, the Lord could have raised up anybody, but this is a spiritual thing. We've been going with this guy since the womb, so it's a spiritual thing, right? And the first time he ever took the what's it called? The yoke from off his neck was in the time of Solomon's son, Jeroboam, right? And then you have the time of of what they call the Dark Ages, when we were ruling and we had Edomites in slavery then. So they broke the yoke again off their neck in the time. So that was the second time that they had broke the yoke up off their neck. And shall, right? Yeah, Satan, right, which is our adversary, shall be loosed out of his prison, and it's set for a small season, a little season, right? Yeah, a little season. See, and this rulership is already going out, so your little season is pretty much up, right? And it says, yeah, shall be loose out of his prison, right, out of the Caucasus Mountain, and that's when they started, 11th century, 12th century, 13th century. By the 14th century, I believe they had a lot of the strongholds at that time, right? They had a lot of the thing have conquered pretty much big portions of Europe, right? There were still some parts that were still ruled by Jake, so-called black men, but they were working on basically conquering them too, of course, coming in peaceable, talking to them, acting like they're coming in diplomatic, smiling in their face, but their hearts, their mind, la'ab, was drawing swords, right? And that's just that's how they've always done it. There's no new thing under the sun. Same thing that they're coming with now. They're gonna come in with all this thing with the AI and make it seem like it's gonna be peace, and it's gonna be peace for citizens, and this is a Citizens Protection Act, and it's not really to protect you, right? And shall go out and deceive, and this time, yeah, and that's what they're doing. Now, so you should know, the earth is given into the hands of the wicked. He covereth the faces, and what is the covering for? To deceive. And he shall go out and deceive the nations which are in the four corners of the earth, which proves the Renaissance period had to happen, right? It had to happen in order to be in the four corners of the earth, because at that time, people only lived in the eastern part of the world. This fourth part, as far as history, they thought the world was flat or whatever they thought. A lot of people didn't come over here. The only one who came over here was Solomon, and of course a couple of Hamites, which he did that with Hiram Abiff, and had a navy with him. So one number, basically very dark men, right, who came to this side of the world. There was no Edomites over here, and then of course the Northern Kingdom came over this way. So we're talking about melanated people that were in this area, right? So if Esau is to get the fat of the earth by the sword, what was he going to have to do? He was going to have to sell the 1492, sell the Ocean Blue, right? St. Elmo's fire, which are the chariots, directing him, because what prophecy had to be fulfilled, right? Which are in the four corners of the earth, right? And now we're coming to the time of his end, and now World War III is imminent. Gog of Magog to gather them together to the battle. So that's World War III. So they're gonna the daughter of Babylon is gonna have to fight against the bear, Russia, right? The chief prince, right? Right, and it says, gather themselves for World War III, basically, which is their end, the demise. Their number of them is as the sands of the sea, right? So that, and that's what Russia's building up now, right? They're linked up with China and North Korea and all these other places, which, man, it's a numerous amount of people. That's part of that BRICS, right? Yeah, so this is 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 13. It says, which are false apostles, right? Yeah, deceitful works, right? See? Right? Transforming themselves into the apostles of Hamashiach, right? Which they learned to do that in the time of conquering Jake, because Jake is the one who came up with the Roman Catholic Church. It's actually so-called black people is the one who created the Roman Catholic Church. That's why they have the Black Madonna, right? Because that was part of the history from a long time ago. The Catholic Church was created by black people. Whether you know it or not, accept it or not, you can get mad, but that's just the cold hard facts. we ruled Europe for 1,000 years. And as they conquered us in the time of ruling Europe, they came in deceitfully, right? Making pacts, smiling in Jake's face, right? And that, right? And that's how they've always came, right? Matter of fact, let's see. Yeah. So this is First Maccabees chapter 1, verse 30. And spake peaceable words, right? Which is the Edomites. Matter of fact, let's go up here just to give you the understanding, because this is the time when they became the Greeks, when they got their first rulership, right? And it says, and it happened after Alexander, the son of Philip the Macedonian, who came, right, which goes back to Edom. We know that Philip was a son of Haman, the Edomite. The one who went against Mordecai, right? The Edomite, Haman, the Edomite. He was a what do they call it? A Haggagite. They were Haggagites, which goes back to Edom, right? And it says, son of Philip, Macedonian, which is a Haggite, who came out of the land of Chechtem, had smitten Darius, the king of Persia, and the Medes, that they reigned in his stead, the first of over Grecia, right? Because they had all these different provinces, and they ruled, and so they were the first ones to take over. And when he took over, he ruled over the province of Greece, and then they just basically started calling themselves Greeks, right? And this is the time of their first rulership. And it says, and going back to this, First Maccabees 1 and 30, and spake peaceable, and saying that's their MO. They've been doing that. This is the time of them coming through and conquering the world. So, and Jake, Jake is basically still their enemy. It doesn't matter, right? Right, from the womb to now, we're always going to be enemies to this man. But what they'll do is they'll speak peaceable words unto them, but all was deceit, right? Right? He's going to come back and deceive the whole world. And this was the time that he deceived the world the first time. But it says he's going to come back a second time, which we're in the time that they came back, right? Like I said, during Christopher Columbus sold the ocean blue. They had to have that fourth part of the earth in order to fulfill prophecy, right? And he got the whole world by the sword, all four corners of the earth. But this is the time, saying, and all was deceit. For when they had given him credence, he fell suddenly upon the city. See, after they finally kind of relaxed and was, oh, okay, you're a good guy. Okay, well, just come on over. Hey, you're not that bad of a guy. So when he did that, bah, suddenly he just started making war, right? Upon the city, and start killing people. Smote it very sore, and destroyed much people of what? Of Israel, Yasha, right? It says, and when he had taken the spoils of the city, he set it on fire, right? And that's ultimate. Hey, that's Esau's MO, man. Things he's been doing. He did that in the time when the Babylonians took over us. He set our temple on fire, right? Right. Nero set the city on fire, blamed it on the Israelites, or what they, and the thing it's going to say Christians, but we know that they were Israelites, right? Christian was a derogatory term and a false term, basically going back to Serapis, right? Serapis Christus, right? Right. That's an idol, right? So that's not, to be called a Christian is not good, because that's basically, it's an idol. Serapis Christus, where you get Christian from, is an idol. So to call us something like we're worshiping idols or something, it's a false thing. We're worshiping Yahweh Shai, Hamashiach. Yeah. So, but they took much spoil of the city, and set it on fire and pulled down the houses, right? Oh, wow. And the walls thereof on every side. Yeah, see? And that's what they're about to do again, right? But that's by a way that they're doing to Gaza. They're doing that to every place. Put in their 15-minute cities, so basically control everything. But this is by way of how they were able to come in. Yeah, and basically going back into the time when they conquered the Byzantine Empire, or what they call the Middle Ages, right? In the time that they were conquering those things, Jake is the one, so-called black people, right, were the ones who created the Catholic Church. But as they did, they infiltrated it with peaceable words, and after they said these peaceable words, they slew them, they killed them, they did all these different things, and they took over the Catholic Church. And for such are false apostles, and that's how they did it. And then they became what? False apostles. What? Deceitful, right? So we're going to deceive the world. Workers transforming themselves into apostles of Hamashiach, right? Saying that they believe in Hamashiach, but instead they put the word Christ, changed Hamashiach, changed all the Hebrew words and the things that mean, changed Yahushai into Jesus, right? Because they can worship idols, right? They had to interject that into the Bible, which is basically painting the likeness of their image, right? Which that's an idol. It says, and no marvel, so it's not you do not marvel, right? Do not be surprised, for Satan, right, which is our adversary. Esau Edom is our adversary from the womb, from the time he wrestled with us and fighting to the death in our mother's womb, right? Trying to be the firstborn, right? Because normally the blessing comes through the firstborn. So, it was something within the womb that it was known, like, I need to be the firstborn. So Esau was like, I'm finna come out the womb first. I'm gonna be the firstborn. I'm gonna get the inheritance. But even in that, he sold his birthright, and then was trying to after sell it, go and obtain it after he sold it, which that's ultimate deceit, right? Says so don't marvel that, for Satan himself is transformed into an angel of light. And that's how they got into the Catholic Church, right? Now they have to say these things like what the guy was saying, so to speak. What he was saying. Now they have to do away with the law. But it's more to them just doing away with the law like that. Because now it has to do with them being able to kill you and make it be not a big deal. Because the law says thou shalt not kill. Right? Now they have to make you less than a person. And so, like the guy was saying, they said thou shalt not kill. And they live by thou shalt not kill another Edomite. Thou shalt not kill all these other things. Or when you kill one another, it's thou shalt not kill. But they could kill you, and because they transform themselves into an angel of light, they could kill you, and it basically means nothing, right? They could leave you in the ghettos, the vadios, the reservations, and it means nothing because they're the authority of the Bible. Now they can come in and tell you that the laws are done away with, right? Right. So yeah, it's basically pretty much in the same chapter. So I just went up, same chapter, 2 Corinthians 11:3. But I fear, right? This is the Apostle Paul, lest by any means as the serpent, right? And why is he bringing up the serpent again? talking about Esau Edom, right? It just called him the serpent, the dragon, the serpent, the devil, Satan, right? Talking about Esau Edom, that he was going to be shut up for a while, and then he was going to be loose. After that 1,000 years of him being in the Caucasus Mountains, he was going to be loosed. He was going to start conquering all these different provinces in the time of the Dark Ages, conquer in the Dark Ages, reintroduce itself through the rebirth, right? That's what the Renaissance is called. What basically what Renaissance means, and it's the rebirth of the Edomites, right? And yeah, and so yeah, and that's basically the rebirth of the Edomite, and that's basically yeah, Renaissance meaning rebirth. And this is what this is. It says Psalms 58:3, the wicked are estranged from the womb, they go astray as soon as they be born, speaking lies. So now they got through the Renaissance, they're reborn, and it was their job to what? To deceive the world again. So as soon as their rebirth, the Renaissance, they started speaking lies, right? So that's basically why do you think he's mentioning it as the serpent, right? Going back into it being Esau, bringing it up. This is Esau Edom, as the serpent, Esau Edom, beguiled Eve through subtlety, so your mind should be corrupted. See, and that's ultimately what he was doing by bringing in these different things, conquering, creating the Jesuits and all these other different things, and conquering the Catholic Church and bringing in Jesuits inside of Congress, and everywhere they go, they basically they subtly take it over. But they talk peacefully. They act like they're one of you. They're there, and they're there to pass laws. They act like they're there for the common people. But overall, it's a thing to usher in their agenda, right? Edomite supremacy, right? Through his subtlety, right? So your mind should be corrupted from the simplicity that is in Hamashiach, right? Which they put in Christ, which showing you that they added that there. They wouldn't. The Lord is not Greek. These are Israelites. This is written by Israelites for Israelites. You wouldn't put Christ there, right? And then people like to go, well, but this and that. It was read this and that. Well, that's still Christ would still be. That would be like a Latin or Greek terminology. Is that actually English? I mean, you could read it because you know what it says, it's Christ, but that's not an English terminology. How do you break that down into actual English? Because English is a synonym of a bunch of different languages. It's like a bastard language. So what would you do? You would go back into the Greek, then you would go back into the Hebrew, where it originally came from, and that's Hamashiach. So the Greek, this goes back to Serapis Christus, back into the Egyptian god that they raised up during the time when they ruled over Egypt, right? The Greeks, right? It says for if he that cometh preaching another, right? There you go again. See, and they're in this is Greek term, not to mention. Well, this ain't even Greek, because if you think about it, in the time of the Greeks, there was no J's either. They're in no alphabet ever in ancient times, right? The letter J was created by a man named Giorgio Trissino, right? He created the letter J, and that didn't come to what, 1592 or 15 82, something like that, right? Matter of fact, we'll look it up then, because right here we go. Until the year 1524. Okay, I know it's 15 something. 1524. There was no letter J in the alphabet, but not just in the alphabet. I mean, that they're making a plain statement. It should have been any alphabet, no matter what language. There was no J in any alphabet, whether Greek, Latin, whatever, Chinese, whatever you ever, right? The Canaanite language, which is Hebrew, the Lashawan Kodash, right? There's no J, right? And it says the letter J was originally the same letter as I, as a letter I. The father of the letter J is Gene Giorgio Trissino, right? Because he could have made his, see all these G's, he could have put a J, right? Right? Yeah, Giorgio Trissino. How you say it? Gian, yeah, Gian Giorgio Trissino, an Italian author, right? Who, he basically he only lived. I guess he was born in 1478, and he died in 1550, right? So this guy that created this letter J. So any alphabet, especially the Lord lived 2,000 years ago, and even 1,000 and something years or before this happened, you know, right? So the real name is Yahweh Shai. So already you can see someone's already preaching another Messiah, a different Messiah, right? They call him Christ, which that's not the right Messiah or the right anointed, right? And if they come preaching another, it's really supposed to be Yahweh Shai, but here you are with a fake letter, a fake word, which really, if you wanted to break it down, it'd be G meaning earth, and sus meaning pig, like earth, right? When you go into like geo meaning earth, right? Or should you say G, right, to make it short, G, and then sus meaning pig, filthy, dirty, right? So we know that that's not our Lord, right? So you're already preaching another Yahweh Shai, whom we have not preached. We didn't preach to you, earth pig. Back in the time of the Apostle Paul, who you so-called Christians say you love, he would never be teaching of a Jesus, man, because there's no such thing, right? Or if he receive another spirit, right? And that's a different kind of spirit that they want to tell you that the laws are done away with. Now, by telling the laws are done away with, now you could kill a so-called black person, say that he's 2/5 of a man or 3/5 of a man, right? You could kill him and it means nothing. Well, the laws are done away with. Well, that doesn't concern. That's if you just murder a so-called white man. That's only if you do this to this type of person. Now I can come in as the authority because I've already conquered the Holy Roman Empire, right? Or the people who the descendants inherit the Holy Roman Empire. I conquered them, take it over, and basically corrupt it. Now I'm teaching another Hamashiach. Now I'm teaching another Yahweh Shai, right? Which is the way it's supposed to be. And then you're coming in a whole nother spirit, right? Do it thy will. Come as you are. It doesn't matter. You could be that way. You could say what you want to say. You could do what you want to do. You could dress like a woman. You could do these different things. Now, the whole thing is now there's no borders. There's no the laws are done away with. Now a man can dress like a woman. Now a man can be with a man. The laws are done away with. Now you can eat shrimp, crab, lobster, and then we're going to turn around and make those things delicacies. We're going to make those the highest level status, right? We're gonna say this is if you're going to a restaurant and you order lobster and shrimp, you're of some status, and we're gonna make this lobster $100 and something for a goddamn bottom feeder, right? Which at one point in time came a dime a dozen, right? Which now they didn't mess up the ocean so bad. Now they have to put 2 billion or 2 million or billion oysters, try to put oysters back into the ocean because they didn't mess up the ocean. Why? Because they said there's no laws. You could do it thy will, do what you want to do. But ultimately, that's what it's for. It's so they could kill you. It's so they could deceive you, right? It's so they could tell you that the so-called black man is worthless, right? Right? And not necessarily because like what he was saying about the laws, like he said, because basically, so they could steal your land, do all these different things. But then because he's the moral high standard of Satan transforming himself into an angel of light, he could say, I can steal from you, but you can't steal from me. And bring it back into the Bible and say, oh, well, thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not kill. Right? Yeah, so this is Exodus chapter 31, right? Verse 14. Right? So this is the real reason. Because when you think about it, Esau allows adultery to happen. He don't punish the woman. A woman can commit adultery, go to court and still get half your stuff. Right? So he's not worried about adultery. He's not worried about all these other different things. Mostly it's the laws done away with. What they're trying to do is so they can kill Jake and say, hey, it's not a big deal. Right? It's also so they're cutting off the Sabbath because basically it makes you a no people, right? Because then it makes you breaking the law, and it makes the Most High angry with you. It says and then the Sabbath wouldn't be Sunday either, right? So it's by the new moon, by the way, because that's another thing he probably most likely wasn't going. He said the Sabbath, but he most likely going off the Sabbath to Sunday, right? But he's not even going Sunday or Saturday sundown to Sunday sundown would be which would be your Sabbath if you thought it was Sunday. If you thought the Sabbath was Sunday, you would go Saturday sundown to Sunday sundown. But you guys don't believe that it's Sunday either, right? Truly. But this is why he's doing that. It says, ye shall keep the Sabbath therefore, for it is holy unto you, right? Which is by the new moon. Every one that defileth it shall suddenly be put to death. See? And that's ultimately why he wants you to not have the Sabbath. Why he's trying to take you from the Sabbath, so you could be put to death. And see, in a place where now there's no morals, there's no boundaries, the law's done away with. Now, on top of that, you're not keeping the Sabbath day holy. At any given time, Esau can lawfully put you to death. It's easy, right? And on top of that, you're 3/5 of a man. You're this, you're that, you're that. You're just a ghetto, this and that. You're a problem. We got ghetto fatigue. We got black fatigue, right? So it's okay if we kill them, right? Because we're tired of these niggas anyway, right? They kill each other anyway. We're tired of it. We're not gonna cave into white guilt, though they raped, robbed, and murdered again and again and again and again. But then even these so-called black people who's cheering for this stuff, yeah, that's right. There is black fatigue. Yeah, blah 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 blah. But when are you gonna hold the Edomite for accountability? But that's okay, because the Most High is Yahweh Shema Shai. And see, that means ultimately you as a Jake, you're breaking the commandments. And guess what? And every one that defileth it shall surely be put to death. And that's you. All you little Uncle Tom, you bootlicking niggas, and then you niggas who just being niggas, man. You wild, untamed. You in the ghettos. It ain't right that you're that way. But it damn sure ain't right that this month could conquer, do these things, systemically put you into to a bind, and then come out and go, oh, he's tired, he's fatigued. Well, the scripture says you should wear out the saints, man. Who's the one who's fatigued? Right? It says Right? For if whosoever doeth any work wherein that soul shall be cut off from amongst his people, right? You're gonna get put to death, man. Right? The 6 days may work. Yeah, 6 days may work, do be done, but in the 7th is the Sabbath of rest, holy to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Rakakadash. Whosoever doeth any work in the Sabbath day, he shall surely be put to death. And that's ultimately why he did away with the Sabbath. Because then you're constantly sinning against your power. And if Esau have a bug up his ass and he wants to trip on you, he can easily put you to death and there's no recompense for it. He can shoot you in broad daylight while they're videotaping him, while you're running away backwards, shoot you in your back, right? Which back in the day when you were a cowboy, that was a cowardly act to do. But at the same time, it means nothing because you're just a dog. You're 3/5 of a man. You're lower than a dog. It's okay to shoot you in your back. And that's ultimately why they try to do away with the laws and why they brought it in. And you niggas and you Mexicans and you Puerto Rican can'ts, you think that you could like the Edomite ain't gonna come after you, right? But the water for the so-called Puerto Ricans and the so-called Mexicans and the natives who know that they're Israelites, man, and know that this devil is our enemy, man. But a lot of you so-called Puerto Ricans, so-called Native Americans, you so-called Puerto Ricans, you don't think this man is your enemy, but he's gonna show you that, right? It's gonna be you too, and you niggas too, right? I'm a black. Well, that's not even a nationality, bro. You are foolish, man. You have no nationality. You're a no people. You're nobody. Have you read the Black Laws Dictionary? It means you're nobody. You're just commodity. You're nothing. That's why they could just do whatever they want to do to you. That's why your vote don't count. You don't count. You're foolish, man. So with all that, we give all praises and all honor and all glory unto Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakah HaKodash. Double honor to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well and do well, right? To the elder apostles, bishops in Connecticut, the bishops, the preachers, the teachers, the evangelists, and the four winds, preaching in truth and sincerity, risking your lives more now than ever, the hopeful elect, Shalom, and to the Israelite foreigners, right? Because this ain't a black thing. This is an Israelite thing, right? And we will have Israelites who look like other nations, right? This ain't a Hispanic thing. This ain't an all Latino Israelite thing, right? This is the so-called black, Hispanic, and when we have Israelite foreigners who phenotype may look like another nation, but bloodline goes back to Israel through your father and have come back to the fold. Shalom to you sisters, you Akhwathim, who listen and learn under your husband, which is your spiritual leader, with meekness and with silence, and a Baba Ball and Kwam Yasharallah.